My own family forgot to book my ticket to my sister's wedding. They didn't just forget a detail, they forgot me. So I disappeared. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just like any other. I was in my Denver apartment, nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee, lost in the mind-numbing details of quarterly reports. My job as a supply chain analyst for a pharmaceutical company was all about precision, about making sure nothing was overlooked. The irony, I would soon discover, was brutal. My phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice had that specific tremor, the one she used when she was about to deliver bad news, but desperately wanted to pretend it wasn't that bad. "Samantha, honey," she began, "we need to talk about Jessica's wedding." My sister's wedding. 3 weeks away, in Hawaii. I'd already requested the time off, pictured myself on the beach. "What about it?" I asked, my pen already poised. Then came the pause. Oh, that gut-wrenching, agonizing pause that always precedes a bomb drop. My stomach tightened before she even spoke. "Well, darling," she finally said, "your father and we were handling all the travel arrangements. And somehow, we forgot to book your plane ticket and your hotel room." My breath hitched. "We just realized it yesterday," she continued, rushing the words, "and now everything's fully booked. It's peak season in Maui, apparently." I just stared at the wall, at a photo of us all from last Christmas. Jessica, my sister, her arm around me, smiling. We were supposed to be close. "You forgot," I said, the words barely a whisper. "These things happen, sweetheart," Mom replied, her voice trying for soothing, but failing miserably. "We've been so busy." Jessica is devastated, of course, but she understands. "We'll take lots of photos." That's when it hit me. 27 years. 27 years of being the forgettable one. The middle child, always just Samantha, reliable, quiet, easy to overlook. Never the golden daughter, Jessica, the architect. Never the charming entrepreneur, Danny, my younger brother. Just me. "That happens," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Mom, oblivious, chirped, "Oh, I'm so glad you understand." Jessica was so worried you'd be upset. You know how sensitive she gets. "I'll send you photos. I promise." After Mom hung up, I sat there, numb, for a full hour. Then, a flicker. I opened my laptop. Not to find flights to Hawaii. Not anymore. I started researching something else entirely. The next day, at work, I requested a meeting with my supervisor, Patricia. When I told her I want to take a leave of absence, her eyebrows shot up. "A year?" she asked, surprised. "That's quite unusual. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I told her, my voice steady. "I have some personal projects I want to pursue. I've been here for 6 years, and I think I need a break to figure out my next steps." Patricia studied me, her gaze piercing. I'd always been her most reliable analyst, the one who stayed late, who never complained, who fixed problems quietly without drama. "You have plenty of vacation time saved up," she finally said, a small smile playing on her lips. "And honestly, Samantha, you deserve it. You've been carrying this department for years. If you need a sabbatical, take it. Your position will be here when you get back." I thanked her, and as I walked out, I felt lighter than I had in months. That evening, I didn't call my family's group chat. No one answered calls anymore. I sent a message. "Hey everyone, not gonna make the wedding, but I hope it's beautiful. Taking some time for myself. Going to be offline for a while. Love you all." Jessica responded immediately. "Wait, where are you going?" I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off my phone and opened my laptop again. Over the next week, a silent, almost surgical purge of my old life began. I sold most of my furniture, put my car in storage, and rented out my apartment. I kept only what fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack. My family tried calling. Frantic messages from Jessica flooded my voicemail. "Sam, this is weird. Where are you going? Are you okay? Please call me back." Danny texted, "Dude, what's going on? Mom is freaking out." I ignored them all. The day before Jessica's Hawaiian wedding, I boarded a plane. Not to Maui, to Tokyo. I'd always dreamed of seeing Japan, and I'd been saving for years, quietly, meticulously. What no one knew was exactly how much. Living frugally, investing carefully, I had enough to fund an extended journey as long as I was smart about it. As the plane lifted off, leaving Denver behind, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, exhilarating freedom. For 3 weeks, Japan enveloped me. I stayed in tiny hostels, devoured street food, explored ancient temples, and butchered the Japanese language with incredibly patient locals. In Kyoto, I found peace in a calligraphy class. In Osaka, an elderly woman taught me to make soba noodles, her hands reminding me so much of my grandmother. My grandmother, the only one who consistently remembered my birthday, when she passed, had left me a small, private inheritance. No one in my family knew about that money. Grandma had set up a trust, privately, with instructions for it to be given to me on my 25th birthday. A letter came with it. Samantha, you have always been the one who thinks before acting, who plans quietly while others make noise. Use this wisely. Make yourself proud. I had invested most of it, watching it grow, waiting. Now, I was using it exactly as she intended. From Tokyo, I moved to Seoul, then to Bangkok. No photos, no updates, nothing. I existed in a bubble of anonymity, just another traveler with a backpack and a journal, completely untethered. In Chiang Mai, Thailand, I enrolled in a 6-week digital marketing course. It was run by expats, and it felt miles away from the corporate cubicle I'd left behind. I'd always excelled at data and analysis, and here, I discovered a hidden talent for online business strategy. Meanwhile, the few times I dared to turn on my phone, checking it secretly in internet cafes once every 2 weeks, the sparse information I gleaned suggested my family was utterly losing their minds. Jessica's wedding had indeed happened. A quick, covert peek at social media from a borrowed tablet showed a beautiful affair. White sand, a sunset ceremony, an elegant reception, Jessica radiant in her stunning dress. Everyone in the photos looked blissfully happy. No one, it seemed, missed me at all. But my inbox told a different story. 47 emails from my mother. 32 from Jessica. Over 20 from Danny. Even my father, who practically believed email was witchcraft, had sent 3. Subject line screamed, "Where are you? Please call us. This isn't funny anymore. We're worried sick." I read none of them. Not yet. In Vietnam, I met Helen, an Australian woman who'd been traveling for 15 years. She'd built an entire export business from her laptop, connecting Vietnamese artisans with international buyers, powered by sheer grit and determination. The thing about disappearing, she told me one afternoon over coffee in Hanoi, is that you find out who you actually are when nobody is watching. What did you find out? I asked, genuinely curious. She grinned. That I'm much more interesting than my family ever gave me credit for. We became fast friends. Helen taught me the nuts and bolts of international trade, cross-border supply chain management, and how to spot quality. My analytical background in pharmaceutical distribution, surprisingly, translated perfectly. We started collaborating on a small project, helping a collective of ceramic artists reach European markets. It was meant to be just a learning experience, a side quest. But it quickly morphed into something much, much more. By month 4 of my absence, I'd facilitated 3 successful shipments and earned my very first independent commission. It wasn't much, barely enough to cover a week of expenses, but it was mine. Money I'd earned through my own initiative, not by dutifully showing up to a job where I was appreciated but never truly celebrated. Helen whistled when she saw the numbers. "You have a gift for this," she said. "Ever think about doing it full-time?" "Maybe," I replied, a seed of an idea taking root. I moved like a ghost through Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Laos, back to Thailand. I learned to haggle in bustling markets, to discern quality craftsmanship, to navigate the delicate dance of cross-cultural business relationships. I devoured online courses in international trade law and logistics, collaborated with other digital nomads and small business owners. Slowly, meticulously, I was building something real. By month 6, I was running my own small consulting operation, connecting artisans and manufacturers with international distributors. I leveraged my pharmaceutical supply chain background to optimize shipping routes and negotiate unheard of rates. I was good at this. Really good. The money started flowing, not a fortune, but enough to sustain my travels and even begin saving again. More importantly, I was learning and growing in ways I never had back home, where I was always just reliable Samantha, the one who never caused problems or made waves. I kept my phone off, except for those brief, bi-weekly check-ins at internet cafes. The messages from my family had dramatically evolved. The initial anger had softened to concern, then to raw guilt. Mom, sweetheart, we know we hurt you. Please just let us know you're alive. Jessica, I'm so sorry about the wedding. I should have checked the arrangements myself. Please, Sam, talk to me. Danny, everyone is really worried. Dad hasn't been sleeping. Just send a sign that you're okay. On month 7, I was in Bali when I checked my messages and found something that stopped me cold. An email from my father. He'd somehow figure out how to attach a video. I almost didn't watch it, but a potent mix of curiosity and dread won out. The video showed him in his study, looking older, more tired than I remembered. He stared awkwardly into the camera. Samantha, he began, his voice thick with emotion, I don't know if you'll ever see this, but I need to say it anyway. What we did was wrong. Your mother and I, we got so caught up in making Jessica's day perfect that we forgot about you. That's no excuse. You are our daughter, and we failed you. Please come home, or at least let us know you're safe. I love you. I watched it 3 times. Then, I closed my laptop and walked to the beach. The thing was, I wasn't angry anymore. Somewhere between Tokyo and Bali, between learning calligraphy and negotiating shipping contracts, that white-hot rage had burned itself out. What remained was something clearer, sharper, the understanding that I had been complicit in my own invisibility. I've been so busy being reliable, being easy, being the one who never caused problems, that I had let them forget I was even there. But I still wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. By the way, if you're finding yourself engrossed in this wild ride, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. By month 8, I had found myself in Barcelona. My small consulting business was steadily growing, a roster of clients now spanning Asia, all needing help reaching European markets. And then a message arrived that changed everything. It appeared, of all places, on LinkedIn from a woman named Victoria. She identified herself as a senior buyer for Apex Pharmaceutical Distribution, a mid-sized company in Chicago. Her message was direct. Samantha, I hope this message finds you well. A mutual contact gave me your name, speaking highly of your impressive work in international supply chain consultation. We're struggling with our Asian suppliers. Inconsistent quality, inflated shipping costs. Would you be interested in discussing a consulting contract? Your background suggests you'd be perfect. I stared at the words, my heart thumping. Apex. I knew them. A competitor to my old employer, but smaller, more agile, and aggressively expanding. I responded carefully. I'd be interested in learning more. I'm currently based in Europe, but available for video consultations. What timeline are you working with? Her reply came within an hour. How does tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central Time work? The video call happened in a Barcelona co-working space. Victoria appeared on my screen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and an unmistakable no-nonsense demeanor. Let me be direct, she said, skipping pleasantries. We are bleeding money on our Asian supply chain. Delays, quality issues, paying too much for freight. I've heard you've managed to cut shipping costs by 30% for 3 different clients in 6 months, while improving delivery times. How? I walked her through my methodology. Deep relationship building with local suppliers, intimate understanding of regional logistics, negotiating as a true partner, and quality control systems that honored local practices while meeting international standards. She listened, her gaze intense, interjecting with incisive questions that proved she knew the industry inside out. I'll be honest, Samantha, she said when I finished. I've been in this business for 28 years. Most consultants talk a good game, but can't deliver. You sound like you actually know what you're doing. I want to offer you a 6-month contract. Remote work, but with periodic travel to supplier sites. The pay is substantial. She named a figure that made my heart leap. It was more than I'd earned in an entire year at my old job. I need to think about it. I managed keeping my voice steady. Of course, she conceded, but I need an answer by Friday. We're losing ground, and I need someone who can move fast. After the call, I sat there for 2 hours. This wasn't just a handful of small gigs. This was a legitimate contract with a growing company. It promised structure, stability, and validation for everything I'd built over the past 8 months. It also meant emerging from my self-imposed exile. I thought about my family, about the unanswered messages, about the fact that I'd been gone for 8 months, and they still had no idea where I was or what I was doing. Part of me yearned to stay hidden forever, to keep building this new life where no one knew me as the forgettable middle child. But another part, the part that had grown stronger with every country visited, every deal closed, knew that real growth meant eventually facing what I'd left behind. Not because I owed them anything, but because I owed myself the satisfaction of showing them exactly who I had become. I sent Victoria an email. I accept your offer. When do we start? Her response was immediate. Monday. Welcome to Apex. That weekend, I began my return to the visible world. I turned my phone on fully for the first time in months. The cascade of notifications was overwhelming. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, emails. I ignore them all for now. Instead, I updated my LinkedIn profile with my new title, International Supply Chain Consultant, Apex Pharmaceutical Distribution. I carefully detailed my successful consulting work over the past months, professional yet unmistakably accomplished. Then, I posted a single update, excited to announce I am joining Apex Pharmaceutical Distribution as a consultant helping optimize international supply chains. Looking forward to this next chapter, I knew it would detonate it like a bomb in my family's world. They had no idea where I'd been or what I'd been doing. Now they would see that not only was I fine, I was thriving. My phone started ringing within 10 minutes. Jessica. I'll let it ring. Then Mom. Then Danny. I ignored them all. Instead, I spent the evening preparing for my new role. Victoria had sent files detailing Apex's current supply chain challenges. As I reviewed them, something made me smile, a knowing, almost mischievous smile. One of their biggest competitors, the company eating their lunch in the Asian markets, was my old employer. The pharmaceutical distribution company where I had worked for 6 years, where I had been reliable, quiet, easily overlooked Samantha. And now, I was being hired specifically to help Apex beat them. The irony was delicious. On Sunday evening, I finally opened the hundreds of messages from my family. Months of worry, guilt, anger, confusion, and desperate pleading. I read every single one, feeling nothing but a distant, detached pity. Then, I composed a single message to the family group chat. Hi everyone, I'm fine. I've been traveling and working. Sorry for the silence. I'll be in touch soon. Simple, unapologetic, offering no explanations. Jessica tried calling immediately. I declined and sent a text. Not ready to talk yet, but I'm okay. The next morning, I started my new job. Victoria wasted no time. She set up meetings with Apex's executive team. I presented my initial assessment of their supply chain woes and my proposed solutions. They listened, truly listened, with an intensity one had never once experienced in my old job. Gregory, the sharp, decisive CEO, nodded throughout. This is exactly what we needed, he affirmed. Welcome aboard, Samantha. I think you're going to help us change the game. I smiled. That's the plan. My first major project for Apex took me right back to Vietnam, to the very manufacturers my old company had repeatedly failed to properly cultivate. I flew from Barcelona to Ho Chi Minh City with a clear mandate. Establish rock-solid partnerships with 3 key suppliers and negotiate contracts that would give Apex a significant, undeniable advantage. The trip was a success beyond even Victoria's ambitious expectations. Leveraging the relationships I'd built during my travels, I secured exclusive agreements with 2 suppliers who, despite previously working with my former employer, had grown utterly frustrated with their rigid, impersonal approach. The third supplier was a new contact, a family-run operation producing high-quality pharmaceutical packaging that exceeded U.S. standards while costing 40% less than existing alternatives. When I returned to Barcelona and presented the contracts in a video conference, Gregory actually stood up and applauded. Samantha, he boomed, In 3 weeks, you have accomplished what our previous consultant couldn't do in 6 months. These contracts alone will save us close to $2 million annually while dramatically improving quality. Outstanding work. Victoria, who rarely smiled, beamed. I knew you were the right choice. The executive team wanted to discuss expanding my role. Are you available for a call tomorrow? She asked. That night, I finally called my family. Not because I felt obligated, but because I was ready. Mom answered on the first ring, her voice a rush of emotion. Samantha? Oh my God. Samantha, is that really you? Where are you? What have you been doing? We've been so worried. You cannot imagine. I'm in Barcelona, I said calmly, letting the words hang in the air. I've been traveling and working. I'm a consultant now. International supply, chain management. There was a stunned silence. You've been in Europe for how long? She finally managed, her voice climbing an octave. About 9 months total. Asia before that. 9 months. The shock in her voice was palpable. And you didn't think to tell us where you were? You didn't think to tell me I wasn't invited to Jessica's wedding until 3 weeks before? I countered, my tone pleasant, almost sweet. I figured we were even. Another silence. This one longer, infinitely more uncomfortable. Samantha, that's not fair. We apologize for that. It was a terrible mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Mom, I said, my voice hardening. Mistakes are accidental. You had a list of people to book flights and hotels for, and my name wasn't on it. That was a choice. Your sister has been devastated. Has she? I asked, a cynical laugh escaping me. Because when I looked at the wedding photos, everyone seemed pretty happy. No one looked like they were missing anything. We need to talk about this as a family, Mom said, her voice shifting into that familiar, authoritative maternal tone. When are you coming home? I'm not sure yet. My work is here right now. What work? You had a perfectly good job in Denver. I quit that job. I have a new one now. A better one. I could almost hear her brain short-circuiting. Her reliable, predictable daughter had vanished for 9 months and returned as someone completely unrecognizable. I want to talk to you about this properly, she finally said, face to face. Can you at least video call so we can see you? Maybe later this week. I have to go, Mom. Work calls. Samantha, wait. I hung up, and it felt surprisingly, deeply good. The next call was worse. Jessica tried the guilt approach immediately. Sam, I can't believe you just disappeared like that. Do you have any idea what that did to me? On my wedding day, knowing my sister was out there somewhere, angry at me. Did it ruin your day? I asked. What? No, but then I guess everything worked out fine. I finished cutting her off. That's cruel, Sam. That's not like you. Maybe you don't know what I'm like, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Maybe nobody does. But we grew up together. I'm your sister. Sisters remember to invite each other to their weddings. I shot back. Jessica started to cry. It wasn't my fault. Mom and Dad were handling the travel. I trusted them to take care of it. You trusted them to take care of everything, except checking if your sister was actually invited. That says something, Jessica. I'm sorry. How many times do I have to say it? I'm not angry anymore, I said, speaking honestly from a place of calm. I'm just done being invisible. You were never invisible to me. I was. I'm the boring one, remember? The one without the architecture career, or the perfect wedding, or the interesting life. Just reliable old Sam who you could forget about, because she'd always be there anyway. That's not true. Then tell me, Jessica, I challenged, when was the last time you asked me about my life? About what I wanted, what I was doing, what truly mattered to me? The silence stretched, heavy and undeniable. She couldn't answer, because she couldn't remember, because it had never happened. I have to go, I said. Congratulations on your marriage. I hope you're very happy. I hung up before she could respond. Danny tried a different approach. Anger. What the hell, Sam? You just vanished for 9 months. Do you know how crazy that made everyone? Dad thought you might be dead. I sent a message saying I was fine. 1 message in 9 months. That's insane. Is it? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Or is it about as much attention as I usually get from this family? Oh, come on. You're not going to play the victim card here. You're the one who ghosted everyone. After being ghosted first, I pointed out. Seems fair. You're being childish. Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally standing up for myself. Did you ever think of that? Standing up for yourself by running away to Europe? Barcelona, specifically? And I didn't run away. I left. There's a difference. Whatever. When are you coming back? I don't know. Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because you live here. You have a family here. I have a job in Barcelona and clients in Asia. This is where my life is now. Danny made an exasperated sound. You can't just decide to live in Spain, Sam. That's not how life works. Actually, Danny, it's exactly how life works. When you're an adult with money and skills, you go where you want. You do what you want. You stop waiting for permission from people who barely notice you exist. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Let me ask you something, Danny. When was my birthday? Silence. A long, telling silence. You don't know, do you? Of course I know. What day, Danny? More silence. It was 3 months ago. Not one of you remembered. Not Mom, not Dad, not Jessica, and definitely not you. I turned 28 years old in Bangkok, completely alone, and my family didn't even notice. So forgive me if I'm not rushing back to Denver for a reunion. After those calls, I muted the family group chat and focused on my work. Victoria had been serious about expanding my role. Within 2 weeks, I was officially promoted to senior consultant, with a significant raise and equity options in Apex. My territory now included not just Southeast Asia, but also Eastern Europe, where Apex wanted to forge new supplier relationships. I moved from Barcelona to Prague, a city I'd never visited, but immediately fell in love with the architecture, the history, the vibrant culture. It felt like a place where I could finally put down temporary roots while maintaining the flexibility my work required. My consulting work was thriving. I developed a reputation in the industry as someone who could expertly navigate complex international partnerships and solve supply chain problems that others found impossible. Offers started pouring in from other companies, but I remained loyal to Apex. They had taken a chance on me when I was still building my credibility, and Victoria had become far more than a supervisor. She was a true mentor. Meanwhile, my family's messages had morphed yet again. From guilt-tripping, they shifted to blatant attempts at manipulation. Mom sent lengthy emails about Dad's health suffering from the stress of my absence. Jessica forwarded articles about the importance of family forgiveness. Danny tried the buddy approach, sending memes and jokes, attempting to normalize communication as if nothing had happened. I responded occasionally, brief messages confirming I was alive and well. Nothing more. Then, 6 weeks into my Prague residency, I received a call from Victoria that changed everything. "Samantha, we need to talk about something sensitive," she said, her voice grave. "I'm sending you an encrypted file. Look at it and call me back." The file contained internal documents from my former employer in Denver. Somehow, Apex had obtained details of their new expansion strategy, and it was aggressive. They were planning to undercut Apex's pricing in every major market, using what appeared to be insider knowledge of our cost structures. How did they get this information? I asked when I called Victoria back, my mind already racing. "We think they have someone on the inside," she explained, "someone who knows our contracts and pricing." She paused. "Samantha, I need to ask you directly. You worked there for 6 years. Did you sign a non-compete?" "No," I replied. "I was just an analyst. They didn't consider me important enough for a non-compete." "And you've had no contact with anyone there since you left?" "None. I quit without notice and disappeared. Remember?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "The timeline matches up," she finally said. "They started getting aggressive right around when you would have been in Southeast Asia, establishing our new supplier relationships." My mind raced. "You think they're copying my strategy? How would they even know what I was doing?" "That's what we need to find out. Can you think of anyone there who might have tracked your movements? Anyone who knew about your new position?" I thought back to my old office, to the people I'd worked with for 6 years. Most of them had barely noticed when I left, but there was one person who might have paid attention. There was someone, I said slowly. Trevor. He was in my department, always competitive, always looking for an edge. We worked on several projects together. He knew my methods. Is he still there? As far as I know. Let me check. I logged into LinkedIn for the first time in weeks. Trevor's profile showed he was indeed still at my former employer, but he'd been promoted. He was now the director of international supply chain strategy. My job, the promotion I had been quietly working toward for 6 years. Victoria, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. He has my old job, or rather, the job I should have gotten. Send me his information. We need to figure out if he's tracking your work. Over the next week, Victoria's team investigated. What they found was both flattering and infuriating. Trevor had indeed been monitoring my LinkedIn profile, my consulting activities, and even my travel patterns. He'd been using my success as a roadmap, following 3 months behind, approaching the same suppliers I had worked with, trying to undercut the relationships I'd built. But he wasn't as good at it as I was. He lacked the cultural sensitivity, the patience, the genuine relationship-building skills. Most of the suppliers he approached had either rejected his offers or given him minimal access, remaining loyal to the partnerships I had established. Still, his clumsy attempts were causing problems. Suppliers were confused why 2 different American companies were approaching them with similar strategies. Some were starting to distrust both companies, worried about being caught in corporate games. We need to shut this down, Victoria declared during our strategy call. Samantha, I know this is asking a lot, but would you be willing to go back to Denver? Apex wants to open a U.S. regional office, and we think your presence there would send a strong message. Plus, you could directly counter whatever Trevor is doing. I thought about it. Denver. Home. The place I had fled from a year ago. When? I asked. 3 months. That give you time to finish your Eastern Europe projects and transition them. We want you focused on the U.S. market and directly competing with your old company. They'll realize I'm specifically targeting them. Good, Victoria said, a glint in her eye. Let them realize it. You're better at this than anyone they have, and it's time they knew it. After the call, I sat in my Prague apartment, looking out over the city lights. A year ago, I had been invisible, forgotten, left behind. Now, I was being asked to return as a strategic weapon. The irony was almost too perfect. I called my mother. It was time. Mom, I'm coming back to Denver. The sound she made was a mixture of gasp and sob. Really? Oh, Samantha, I'm so glad. When? 3 months. For work. Apex is opening a regional office there, and I'll be running it. You'll be running an office? But I thought you were just consulting. I was. Now I'm being promoted to regional director. It's a significant position. I didn't know you were doing so well. You didn't ask. A long pause. You're right, she conceded, her voice softer, laced with genuine regret. I didn't. I'm sorry for that, sweetheart. Truly. And surprisingly, I believed her. But I'm not coming back to be the old Samantha. That person doesn't exist anymore. I'm coming back on my own terms, with my own life, my own career. If you, Dad, Jessica, and Danny want to be part of that life, you'll need to accept it. Of course we will. We just want you back in our lives. We'll see, I said. I'll let you know when I land. The 3 months flew by. I wrapped up my Eastern European projects, seamlessly transitioned them to my replacement, and prepared for the move back to Denver. Apex had leased sleek, modern office space in a new downtown building, nothing like my old cubicle farm. They'd given me a generous budget to hire a small team and the autonomy to make strategic decisions. I wasn't just returning to Denver. I was returning as someone who truly mattered. The night before my flight, I had one last video call with Victoria. Samantha, I want you to know something, she said, her expression earnest. When I first reached out to you a year ago, I was taking a risk. You had no official consulting experience, just some projects you'd cobbled together while traveling. But something told me you were special. You proved me right beyond your wildest expectations. Thank you. That means a lot, I replied, touched. This new position is not just about competing with your old employer. We're betting on you to build something significant. Apex wants to dominate the pharmaceutical distribution market in the United States within 5 years. You're going to help us do that. No pressure then, I said with a wry smile. She laughed. You thrive under pressure. That's why we hired you. One more thing, though. Your old employer knows you're coming. Word has gotten out. Expect them to react. Let them react, I said, my resolve ironclad. I'm ready. I landed in Denver on a crisp October afternoon, exactly 1 year and 1 month after I'd left. The city looked the same, but I felt utterly, completely different. I checked into a hotel. Apex was paying for temporary housing, and spent the evening unpacking, preparing for my first day at the new office. I didn't contact my family yet. That could wait. The Apex regional office was on the 14th floor of a building in the Lodo district. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the mountains. My office had my name on the door, Samantha, Regional Director. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just taking it in. A year ago, I'd been an analyst in a cubicle, easily forgotten. Now, I had an office with my name on it and a team to build. My first hire was critical. I needed someone who understood the local market, but wasn't tied to any of the existing players. I spent 2 weeks interviewing candidates, and I found her. Patricia. Not my old supervisor, but a different Patricia, a former operations manager at a medical device company. Sharp, ambitious, exactly what I needed. "I'll be honest," she said during her interview. "I know who you are. I know you used to work at the company we're competing against. That makes this interesting." "Interesting how?" I asked. "Because everyone in the industry is talking about you," she said with a grin. "The analyst who disappeared and came back as a consultant, who built a reputation in Asia faster than anyone thought possible, and who is now being positioned to take on her former employer. It's a great story. It's not a story. It's my life." "Even better," Patricia said. "I want to be part of it." "When do I start?" She started the following Monday. Together, we began building the operation. 2 more hires followed, a logistics coordinator and a business analyst. A small team, but incredibly effective. Meanwhile, my family became more persistent. They knew I was back in Denver. I'd posted about my new position on LinkedIn, but I still hadn't reached out. Finally, after 2 weeks, I agreed to dinner. Not at home, but at a restaurant. Mom, Dad, Jessica with her husband Brandon, and Danny. They looked older, perhaps a little more tired. Or maybe I was just seeing them clearly for the first time. The dinner started awkwardly. Everyone tried too hard to be normal, to pretend the last year hadn't happened. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Samantha," he began, his voice heavy with sincerity, "we owe you an apology. A real one. What we did, leaving you out of Jessica's wedding, it was unforgivable. We got caught up in the excitement and the planning, and we forgot the most important thing." "We didn't forget her," Mom interjected. We forgot her, Mom," Dad said firmly, cutting her off. "Let's be honest. Samantha has always been the easy child, the one who didn't demand attention, who didn't seek the spotlight. And we took advantage of that. We let her slip into the background because it was convenient." Jessica was quietly crying. Danny stared intently at his plate. "I'm sorry," Dad continued, looking directly at me. "You deserve better from us. If you'll give us a chance, we want to do better." I looked at each of them. My family. The people who had shaped me, forgotten me, and inadvertently pushed me toward becoming someone stronger, someone I barely recognized. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person who left. That person doesn't exist anymore. I don't need your approval. I don't need to be included in family events to feel valued. I have built a life that matters to me, with or without you in it." "We understand," Mom said quickly, almost desperately. "We just want to be in your life, whatever that looks like. Then you need to accept that my life is here in Denver, but also in Prague and Bangkok and wherever my work takes me. You need to accept that I am successful and independent. You need to stop treating me like reliable, boring Samantha who exists to make everyone else comfortable." "We never thought you were boring," Jessica whispered, her voice thick with tears. I looked at my sister, whom I had once idolized. "Yes, you did. You all did. But that's okay. It taught me something important." "What?" Danny asked, finally looking up. "That being forgotten can be the greatest gift. It forced me to find out who I was without you. And I like who I found." The dinner ended with tentative plans to stay in touch. I promised to come to Sunday dinners occasionally. They promised to actually remember my birthday next year. Small steps, perhaps, towards something that might eventually resemble a healthy relationship. But I wasn't holding my breath. The real test came 2 weeks later when Trevor reached out. His LinkedIn message was brief. "Heard you were back in town. We should grab coffee. Would love to hear about your travels." I stared at the message, a cold fury rising within me. He had been following my work, copying my strategies, trying to benefit from my success while I had been utterly invisible to him when we worked in the same office. I replied, "Sure. How about Tuesday at 10 o'clock? He suggested a coffee shop near my old office. I countered with one near my new office. He agreed. It was time to remind everyone exactly who had taught them their best moves. Trevor looked exactly as I remembered him. Confident, polished, the kind of person who had always been noticed while I'd faded into the background. He stood when I entered the coffee shop, flashing the charming, practiced smile that had probably helped him secure that promotion. "Samantha, you look great." "Europe clearly agreed with you." "It did," I said, shaking his hand briefly, my grip firm before sitting down. We ordered coffee, made meaningless small talk about Denver's growth, the weather. Nothing substantive. He was circling, trying to figure out how to approach what he really wanted to discuss. Finally, he leaned forward, a feigned casualness in his posture. "I have to say, I've been following your work. Very impressive what you've done in such a short time. That Vietnam deal everyone's talking about? Brilliant. Thank you. You were always good at the detail work. I remember when we worked together on that Thailand project. You had such a methodical approach." I smiled slightly. "I remember that project. You presented my analysis to the executives and took credit for it." He had the grace to look uncomfortable, a flush creeping up his neck. "That was just how things worked back then, Samantha. Team effort, you know." "Of course," I said, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "So, why did you want to meet?" Trevor relaxed, clearly thinking he'd successfully glossed over the past. "I wanted to pick your brain about the Asian markets. We're expanding there, and honestly, we could use some insights from someone who's been on the ground." "You want me to help my competitor?" I asked, my voice flat. "We don't have to be competitors. There's room for multiple players in this market. Maybe we could even collaborate on some projects." I set down my coffee cup, carefully, deliberately. "Trevor, you've been following my LinkedIn profile for a year. You've been approaching the same suppliers I cultivated, using the same strategies I developed, trying to replicate my success, and now you want to collaborate." His face cycled through several expressions, surprise, indignation, before settling on defensive anger. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. The question is, why? You got the promotion I should have had. You're in the position I worked toward for 6 years. Why are you so interested in what I'm doing?" He was quiet for a moment, and I saw something flicker across his face. Not guilt, envy. "Because you're good at this," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. "Better than me, maybe. You always were. You see things other people miss. You build relationships that last. And now you're with Apex. And they're beating us in every market you touch. And whose fault is that?" I asked, my voice sharp. "I didn't force you to leave." "No, you just made sure I stayed invisible long enough that leaving was the only option." Trevor leaned back, trying to regain his composure. "What do you want me to say, Samantha? That I'm sorry? That I wish things had been different?" "I don't want you to say anything," I replied. "I just wanted you to know that I know exactly what you've been doing, and it hasn't worked. The suppliers you approached, they told me about your offers. They laughed about how poorly you understood their business cultures, how you tried to strong-arm deals instead of building partnerships." His jaw tightened. "We're doing fine. You're hemorrhaging market share to Apex," I stated, a cold satisfaction in my voice. "In 6 months, we've captured 15% of the pharmaceutical distribution market in Southeast Asia. Your company has dropped by 12% in the same period. Those numbers are public, Trevor. Anyone can see them. So, you came back here to gloat?" "No, I came back here to finish what I started." I stood up. Trevor looked up at me, and for the first time in all the years I'd known him, I saw genuine uncertainty in his eyes. "Enjoy your coffee," I said. "And Trevor, stop following my LinkedIn profile. It's a little pathetic." I walked out without looking back, the sweet taste of victory lingering. That evening, I had a video call with Victoria. She was smiling before I even said a word. "I heard about your meeting with Trevor," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "How did you—" "The industry is smaller than you think," I interrupted, "and people talk. Especially when someone shuts down the competition's golden boy in public." "Well done." I just told him the truth, which is exactly what he needed to hear. "Samantha," she continued, her expression turning serious. I have news. The executive team has been reviewing the quarterly projections, and your impact on our growth cannot be overstated. We want to expand your role again. You've already exceeded every target we set. Gregory wants to make you Vice President of International Operations. You would oversee all of our global supply chain initiatives, not just the United States region. I sat down slowly. Vice President, a title that would have taken me decades to achieve at my old company, if ever. I've been back in Denver for less than 2 months. That's substantial, she said, seeing my shock. You've earned it. The board meeting is next week. They want you to present your strategy for the next 2 years. Show them what you showed us in Vietnam and Prague. Convince them that you can scale that success globally. After the call, I sat in my apartment, looking out at the Denver skyline. A year ago, I had been invisible, forgotten, left behind. Now I was being offered a vice presidency at a company that actually valued my work. But I wasn't done yet. The board presentation was scheduled for the following Thursday. I spent a week in intense preparation, pulling together data, projections, case studies. Patricia helped me refine the presentation, pushing back on weak points, strengthening the narrative. You need to show them you're not just good at tactics, she'd emphasized. You need to prove you think strategically, that you understand the big picture. She was right. I restructured the presentation to tell a compelling story, where Apex was now, where the market was heading, and how my approach could position them to dominate within 5 years. The night before the presentation, my mother called. Sweetheart, she began, I just wanted to tell you how proud I am. Jessica mentioned she saw something on LinkedIn about a promotion. Potentially, I corrected. I have a board presentation tomorrow. That's wonderful. What will you be presenting? For the first time, I found myself actually explaining it to her, walking through my strategy, my vision. She listened, asking occasional questions that showed she was genuinely trying to understand. Samantha, she finally said, her voice filled with awe, I had no idea you were doing work at this level. This is remarkable. It's what I've been building toward. I know I've said this before, but I really am sorry we didn't see it. We didn't see you. You were always there, always reliable, and we took that for granted. You did. Can I come to Denver next month? Just me, not the whole family. I'd like to take you to dinner and actually talk. Really talk about your life, your work, everything we missed. I considered it. Maybe. Let me get through this presentation first. Of course. Good luck tomorrow, honey. Not that you need it. I have a feeling you're going to impress everyone. The presentation was at 9 a.m. in Apex's Chicago headquarters. I flew in the night before, rehearsed one final time in my hotel room, and arrived at the office early. Gregory greeted me personally. Nervous? He asked. Focused, I replied. Good answer. The board is tough but fair. Show them what you've shown us, and you'll be fine. The boardroom was intimidating. A long table, imposing leather chairs, 7 board members, plus Gregory and Victoria. They looked at me with expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. I was young for a vice president position. I'd been with the company less than a year. I understood their doubts. I began with the Vietnam case study, meticulously walking them through how I had identified the opportunity, built the relationships, and secured contracts that were now saving Apex millions annually. Then I moved to Prague, to the Eastern European partnerships that were opening entirely new markets. This is impressive work, one board member conceded, but it's one thing to succeed in specific projects. Can you scale this approach across all international operations? I advanced to my next slide, a global map, vibrant with target markets, potential partners, and projected growth rates for each region. Yes, I said simply. Here's how. I spent the next 30 minutes detailing my comprehensive strategy, identifying underserved markets, building local partnerships rather than imposing corporate mandates, respecting cultural differences while maintaining rigorous quality standards, and creating a global network of consultants and regional managers who understood both local contexts and global logistics. The key, I explained, my voice resonating with conviction, is recognizing that international supply chain management isn't about controlling everything centrally. It's about building trust in each region and connecting those relationships into a coherent network. My competitors, including my former employer, keep failing because they try to force a one-size-fits-all approach. We will succeed because we adapt. Another board member leaned forward. You keep referring to your former employer. Are you proposing we specifically target them? I am proposing we operate so effectively that they become irrelevant, I replied, my gaze unwavering. If that involves directly competing for their market share, then yes. That is aggressive. That is business. Gregory was beaming. Victoria looked utterly satisfied. The board members exchanged glances, and I saw the shift happening. I had won them over. The board chair, an elegant woman in her 60s named Diane, spoke next. Miss Samantha, you left your previous employer a year ago. You spent that year traveling, building skills, establishing relationships. Can you tell us why you chose Apex when you could have gone anywhere? I paused, gathering my thoughts. Victoria took a chance on me when I was unproven. She saw potential when others would have seen a resume gap and questionable decisions. Apex gave me room to succeed or fail on my own merits. That is rare, that is valuable, and that is worth building something exceptional for. Diane nodded slowly. One more question. What do you want to achieve here? What do you see yourself in 5 years? I want to make Apex the dominant player in international pharmaceutical distribution. I declared, my voice strong. I want to build something that lasts, that matters. And in 5 years, I want to look back and know that I turned potential into reality. Thank you, Diane said. We will deliberate and let you know our decision. I left the boardroom and waited in Gregory's office. Victoria joined me. That was one of the best presentations I have ever seen, she said, her relief palpable. You have nothing to worry about. 20 minutes later, Gregory returned, a wide grin on his face. Congratulations, Madam Vice President. You start immediately. The promotion was announced company-wide that afternoon. My LinkedIn profile updated automatically. Within hours, messages poured in. Congratulations from former colleagues, connection requests from competitors, and one particularly interesting message from my old company CEO. Samantha, congratulations on your new role. I wish we had recognized your talents when you were with us. If you're ever interested in discussing opportunities, my door is open. I did not respond. There was nothing to say. They had their chance. Over the next 3 months, I built my team and implemented my strategy. Patricia transferred to Chicago to serve as my director of operations. We hired regional managers for Asia, Europe, and Latin America. I traveled constantly, visiting suppliers, negotiating contracts, building the intricate network I had envisioned. Slowly, methodically, we dismantled my former employer's competitive advantages. Every supplier they had taken for granted, we courted. Every market they had ignored, we entered. Every relationship they had damaged through arrogance, we repaired. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about doing the work better than anyone else. The results spoke for themselves. Within 6 months of my promotion, Apex had captured 28% of the international pharmaceutical distribution market. My former employer had plummeted to 18%. Their stock price declined. Their board fired their CEO, and Trevor lost his job. I learned about it through LinkedIn, where his profile quietly changed to seeking new opportunities. Part of me felt satisfied. A larger part felt nothing at all. He was no longer relevant to my story. My family had slowly worked their way back into my life. Sunday dinners became a regular occurrence, though I maintained clear boundaries. I shared details about my work when I wanted to, deflected when I didn't. They were learning to see me as I actually was, not as they had assumed. Jessica and I had coffee one afternoon, just the two of us. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, she began, a vulnerability in her voice, about how I never asked about your life. You were right. I was so focused on my career, my wedding, my life, that I never considered yours. I know. I want to do better. Can you tell me about your work? Really? Tell me. Not just the LinkedIn version. So I did. I told her about Vietnam, about learning to negotiate in different cultures, about the profound satisfaction of building something from nothing. She listened, truly listened, asking questions that showed genuine interest. You know what's funny? She said when I finished. I always thought I was the successful sister, the one with the impressive career and perfect life. But you built something I never could. You took a massive risk, reinvented yourself, and came back stronger. I'm actually jealous. Don't be, I said, a gentle smile on my face. You have your path. I have mine. They don't have to compete. When did you get so wise? I smiled. Somewhere between Bangkok and Barcelona. A year and a half after I had disappeared from my family's life, I stood in Apex's Chicago headquarters, looking at the quarterly projections. We had just closed the biggest deal in company history, an exclusive partnership with a manufacturing consortium in India that would supply 30% of the United States pharmaceutical market. Gregory called me into his office. Samantha, the board wants to offer you a seat. You would be the youngest board member in Apex's history. I accepted. That evening, I took myself to dinner in a nice restaurant. No family, no colleagues, just me. I ordered wine, a perfect steak, and dessert. I sat there, savoring every bite, thinking about the incredible journey that had brought me here. 2 years ago, I had been invisible, forgotten, left behind. Today, I was a board member of a major pharmaceutical distribution company, overseeing international operations across 4 continents, earning more money than I had ever imagined possible. But more than that, I had become someone I respected, someone who didn't wait for permission or validation, someone who built her own path when the old one simply disappeared. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Saw the news about the board appointment. So proud of you, sweetheart. Sunday dinner to celebrate. I smiled and typed back. Maybe. I have a flight to Singapore on Monday. Let me check my schedule. Because that was my life now. International flights, board meetings, strategic decisions that affected thousands of people, and a family that had finally learned I was worth remembering. In the months that followed, the consequences for those who had once overlooked me became painfully, undeniably clear. Trevor, that former colleague who tried to ride my coattails, never recovered his career momentum. He ended up in a dead-end job, forever wondering what could have been. My old company, the one that saw me as nothing more than a reliable cog, continued to bleed market share until it was swallowed whole by a competitor. Their executives, the ones who had passed me over for promotions, were left to explain to shareholders how they'd managed to lose the industry's most valuable strategist. Jessica's perfect life began to show cracks. Her marriage struggled under the weight of her husband's failed business venture, and she often called me for advice, finally seeing me as someone worth consulting. My parents, truly humbled, made genuine, if sometimes awkward, efforts to understand my life, though they'll never fully grasp the depth of what their neglect cost me. Sitting in my Chicago office now, watching planes trace paths across the sky to destinations I'll visit next week, I understand. The greatest revenge wasn't their downfall, it was my rise. They forgot me, and in that forgetting, they didn't break me. They freed me. They freed me to become extraordinary. So, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt overlooked, or like you had to disappear to truly find yourself? What did you do? Share your story in the comments below.